No one else wants to. Everything is there.
I hope everybody had a chance to do their homework. You'll meet our speakers here in just a few minutes. Are you going to introduce them, or do you want me to introduce them?
You should.
I should do that now? Okay. You met Frank. By the way, for those of you that this is your first night, I'm Carol Reed. I'm the Executive Director for the Northwest Tennessee Entrepreneur Center, where we help entrepreneurs connect with the resources that they need to launch a new business or expand an existing business. Over here you met, those also met Frank Holbrook. He wears several hats, but he's here tonight as the president of the Northwest Tennessee Angel Fund. Sitting next to Frank is David Hart, a managing partner in Alexander Thompson and Arnold. He will be speaking tonight. And the gentleman in the chair next to David is David Reed, who is my husband, so I am on my best behavior. As Larry pointed out to me a while ago, I was going to have to be on my best behavior tonight, not cause too much problems. Most of you know Dr. Winters. If not, this is Todd Winters, Dean of the College of Agriculture and Applied Science, and Joey's around here somewhere, but he's had to go run an errand. He'll be right back. So, we do have Sam. Oh, over here, very quietly doing her job, and she does a fine job at that, is Sam Gorat, the program administrator for the Northwest Tennessee Entrepreneur Center. We have a guest that's traveled a long way to be here tonight. Femi, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, if you don't mind. Can you? Yeah, we're going to put you on the spot.
No. I'm the associate professor of Faculty of Agriculture in Hirosaki University, Japan. I'm just come here for the exchange program between Tennessee UT Martin and Hirosaki University.
Right, very good. Tomorrow, Dr. Tawari and Dr. Milhorn will be leaving to go back to Japan with Femi, and they'll spend a week over there touring her country and her university. So it's probably a program that we've been going on now for several years with the College of Agriculture. Okay. Right, I think you're up. I'm going to change the tape.
Great.
Oh, surveys from last week, if you'll just pass them around. Let me grab those so we won't get them confused. I'm doing it very now.
Carol, pass them up. You want us to pass them up?
Yes, pass them up, please. How are you? Look.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
What do we need now?
We need to get out of this and bring up this PowerPoint. It's already loaded. All we gotta do is, I don't know how to get out of this.
Okay, as Carol said, I'm Frank Holbrook, president of the Northwest Tennessee Angel Fund. That's not really as great an honor as you think, because I started the fund and I've kind of become the president by default. The assignment for last week, how many recall what the assignment was, the homework assignment? I'll let you. Okay, it was a three-part question. Think about where you want your business to be. Assume that you've got a business that works. Think about where you want it to be in 5 years, in 10 years, and in 15 years. Now, the way I was going to start this presentation is by asking everybody to stand up. Just everybody stand up. Maybe your last chance to get some exercise for a while. Okay. I was here last week. I heard a lot of people say, okay, I've got a business idea. I know what I want to do. And the purpose of last week was to get you to start thinking about where you want to be in the future. So if you have an idea of where you would like your business to be in 5 years, continue to stand. Okay? We got some people. If you have an idea of where you want your business to be in 10 years, keep standing. If you have an idea where you want your business to be in 15 years, stand up. Okay. Here's what I want everybody to do now, is stand back up. And depending on, if you've got a business idea, a lot of people here have a business idea. And you know what you want to do. So there's one more important question. You know, as you look around the room, there's no shortage of ideas. There's no shortage of vision. You know, people can say, I want to be here in 5 years. I want to be here in 10 years. I want to be here in 15 years. I want everybody to stand up. If you presently... for a sure source of funding to get you there. We got 2 people. That's good. Y'all can go ahead and go. You can sit down. You can go because really the purpose of this talk tonight is to talk to you about how to get to that point. How are you going to get the money? Now this is a quote I've used a lot in the practice of law. I thought it was a great quote, and I use it all the time. If you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And, you know, I did what everybody does. You know, I said, well, somebody really smart must have said that. I wonder who said that. Does anybody know who George Harrison is? It's all the old people in the room. He was one of the Beatles. And he wrote a song called Any Road. And that's where that phrase comes from. You don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And, you know, as an entrepreneur, you have an idea, but if you don't really know how you're going to get there, if you don't know where you're going, you don't know which roads to take. Which road's going to take you there? How are you going to get there? And this is really very practical. At least I hope it's practical. Let's start with where we are tonight. I mean, y'all have all signed up for this seminar. You think you're going to get something out of it? Well, it's not just a hodgepodge of ideas. We're just not throwing stuff at you. There is actually a purpose to everything we're doing. And if you go back and you look, there's 6 sessions. You've already heard William Donnell. He talked about the power of strategy. You heard from Chuck Doss last week, leadership. Tonight you're hearing about business formation and valuation. Then intellectual property, due diligence. How many people know what due diligence is? Okay, so there's something to learn. And then making your pitch. Why are we doing this? I'll take credit for you being here because this was kind of my idea to try to come up with this. And let me tell you why every year the college puts on a pitch contest. How many people have participated or been at that pitch contest? Todd, Carol, David? I have. Okay. And you know, the thing is, if you don't know what a pitch is, then how do you participate in the contest? So what we're trying to do is prepare you to make a pitch. And that goes back to that issue of how do you get your money? Because that's what the pitch is all about. So let's look at this so you can put this talk in the context of all the other talks. and so that you get a good overview of what the next 4 sessions are going to be. Tonight we're going to talk about business formation and valuation. Next week, it's intellectual property. And that's usually patents, copyrights, trademarks. That's what intellectual property is. But I think you can think about it as the secret sauce. You know, what's the secret sauce of your business? Most of you have an idea, and that may be your secret sauce. It's the idea that nobody else has come up with. So how do you protect that intellectual property? And not only that, one of the things that entrepreneurs can do, maybe you don't have an idea, but one of the things entrepreneurs can do is look for intellectual property to commercialize. Think about all the research that goes on at universities. And a lot of that research is sitting on a shelf someplace. And universities would love to have somebody come in and figure out a way to make money on it. And the reason they'd like to do that is they'll get some of the money. But you know who else will get some of the money? The people who figure out how to make money on it. So there are sources of ideas out there. There are sources of intellectual property that are available to you. And you need to understand that. You need to think about that. That's some of the things that I didn't know when I was your age. And that's important to understand. So at some point, we're going to actually take some of you who are interested in actually forming a company and seeing if we can go to some of these institutions that have intellectual property and let them preview the intellectual property, and then groups come back and say, how can we make that into a business? How can we make money doing that? So this is not just, this is not 6 weeks end at the end of this 6 weeks. This is part of a bigger vision, hopefully. Due diligence. That really, it's kind of jumping ahead. We'll talk tonight about the pitch a little bit, making your pitch, where you're trying to get money from investors. And due diligence is what an investor is going to do after you make your pitch. You say, I got an idea. Here's how I'm going to make money. They're going to ask you a lot of questions about your idea. They're going to look at your idea. Depending on where you are in your business life, they're going to look at a lot of aspects of your business. So it's not the pitch. The pitch can end your opportunity to get an investment, but due diligence can too. So not only do you make a pitch, you have to be ready for those investors to come in and look behind the pitch and look at and validate what you're saying. So that's what we're doing. That's where we are. I told Carol earlier, if you haven't used the app Waze, this is a picture of Waze, so it's really very cool. But tonight, we're here, business formation and valuation. I think it's always good to let people know what we're trying to accomplish. So the goal for tonight is to help equip you with enough background so you can begin to answer an absolutely essential question. And here's a little hint. If it's up in red, I think it's important. So as you look at the slides, if it's in red, you might want to say, hey, that's important. And I've said here so you can begin. Tonight is not going to answer all your questions. It's to get you to begin thinking about how to answer this absolutely essential question. How do you structure a business to obtain enough funding to get you there, the place you want to go? How are you going to do that? Because there's different ways to do that. And that seems like that's part of the mundane part of being a business owner or being an entrepreneur. But that's absolutely essential. How do you structure it? Last week, if you were here, you heard Chuck Doss in his talk say, to work for yourself and have a successful business, you must be able to tell and sell your story. Anybody, what's the important line up there? It's in red. Be able to tell and sell your story. That's what Chuck Doss said. And that's just another way of saying perfect your pitch. Now, what's the key word you've heard more than any other to this point in the presentation? Pitch. Pitch. What's a pitch? Who wants to take a shot at that? What's a pitch?
A 30-second summation of what your business is all about and why somebody should buy into it.
That can be a pitch. That can be a pitch. You might have, what if they say, you got 30 minutes, tell us about your business. You're going to say, well, I only got 30 seconds.
Every one of those seconds you can turn it.
Anybody else want to take a shot at defining a pitch? I'm going to give you a working definition. This is my definition. It's telling your story followed by a monetary ask. What do you want? That's the monetary ask. You know, when you make a pitch, you're not just saying, hey, I got a great business idea. I think I'm going to be able to sell 1,000 widgets a year. I'm going to make $1 million. So what? Why did you tell that story? It's because you want something. I want to borrow some money. I want you to invest in it. It can also be a pitch to customers. I want you to buy it. But a pitch is telling a story followed by an ask. So next year when the pitch contest comes around, everybody raise your hand if you know what you're going to be doing in the pitch contest. Well, it's a slow group. You're going to be telling your story followed by your monetary ask. Now this is a plug for Carol Reed and Intech. She has an investor pitch template, and it goes into more detail. Carol's going to put it up on the website. So when you get your follow-up email, it'll have a link to this presentation. It will also have a link to the investor pitch template. It's got a lot of good information in there. You should feel free to take it and look at it. What are the two things you need to know to make a pitch? What's your story? Okay? That's what Chuck Doss was doing last week. He was telling you his story. Now, he wasn't making a pitch, but he was telling you about himself. He was telling you, this is what drives me. This is what makes me passionate. But your pitch is going to be, here's my business. This is where I'm going with my business. When I say, where are you going? It's, where is your business going? We are at this point right here. It may be, Luke and I have an idea. We want to sell widgets. And we need X. Now, why should somebody want to invest in that? That's got to be part of your story. And by invest, that may be invest time with you. It may be give you a loan. It may be give you money and take a share of the business. But you got to convince people why it's worth taking a risk. I was thinking about that today. How many people here would like to start with zero and have a $2 million business a year from now? See if that sounds good to anybody. Okay, sounds pretty good. Okay, let's say, I can't see your name. Derica. Let's say Derica and I, we want to start that business. It's going to be $2 million a year, okay? And I say, Derica, I've got this wonderful idea, and I need somebody who is passionate about it, who's committed to my business, and who's going to work long hours. It's going to be more than 40 hours a week. You're going to work weekends. You're going to work nights. You're going to work all the time. But at the end of the year, we'll have $2 million. Now, I'm going to give you two options. I'll pay you minimum wage for every hour you put in. Or, at the end of that year, we'll be partners and you can have $500,000. Which deal would you take? That'd be the better one, because that way you'd end up with $1 million. I don't think anybody making minimum wage is going to make $1 million in a year. So I would be, if I'm trying to get you to buy into it, I'm asking you to invest your time. And so I have to convince you that my idea is good and this is the reward. But you're taking a risk because you could go and work at McDonald's and make minimum wage, and you wouldn't be working long hours. It would be long hours, but it wouldn't be the kind of hours I'm asking you to work. It'd be shorter than that. So you're taking a risk if you say, hey, I'm willing to sign on to your deal because I may get $1 million. And I'm willing to take that risk. But when you go to somebody and you say, invest in my company, you're asking them to do the same thing in a different way. You're saying, take your money that you could leave in a bank or you could leave in stocks or you could leave anywhere, and instead of leaving it there, give it to me because I'm going to make it worth your while to do that. So you need to convince those people. Your story needs to tell those people why they're taking that risk. And then you've got to know, what do you need? And what are you willing to offer in return? Okay? With Derica, I needed her to work long hours for a year. So I could actually say, this is my story, this is what I need. And then it's up to her to say, it's worth it or it's not worth it. And what was I willing to offer? Well, I gave her 2 chances. You could make minimum wage or you could make $1 million. Now, if I'm willing to offer either of those, then one of the things I'm willing to offer is $7.50 times however many hours. And let's say it's 2,000 hours, which that's 50 weeks, 40 hours a week. I'm asking you to invest 2,000 hours. Now, if you take the minimum wage, what are you going to make? 7 times 2,000, $14,000. Or you can have $1 million. 2 different risks. But if I say I'm going to pay you every week, you get your money. On the other one, you may or you may not. So when you're talking to investors, that's part of what you're trying to convince them, that they've got a shot at getting their money back. But investors also know that they may not. If you're dealing with sophisticated people, they know that they may not get their money back. Now the difference is if you go to a bank and you say, I need X amount of dollars, they may loan you the money, they're assessing the risk, but they're going to say, well, I want you to put up the title to your house, and I want you to do this, and I want you to do that. So they're minimizing their risk, and they're making it harder on you. So those are different ways you could structure a business deal. So at a high level, again, we're at about 30,000 feet tonight. What do you need to think about to really think intelligently about forming your business? Now, I don't have an equation tonight where I can put up there and say, if you do X, Y, Z, that's the right business formation. That's the right business form. It doesn't work like that. That's why you have lawyers. That's why you have accountants. And we've got 2 great speakers following me who can tell you about different forms of business. And you can get caught up in all kinds of issues. You know, if you start reading, you'll find things that say, well, you need to be a C corporation. You need to be an S corporation. You need to be incorporated in Delaware. You need to be incorporated in your home state. You need to be an LLC. You can operate as a partnership. There are all kinds of business formations. I call it the alphabet soup of choices. Some of those are available to you. Some of them are not. Like a professional limited liability company, that's only for accountants, lawyers, things like that. A C corporation is just, it's a corporation that's taxed a certain way. An S corporation is a corporation that's taxed a different way. Don't get all tied up in those things. Those are things that as you get further down the road, you're going to need to decide. But tonight, I want you to think about two main things. What type of business are you going to have? Is it going to be a lifestyle business, or is it going to be a scalable business? And those are terms that you'll hear a lot when you're dealing with investors. What's a lifestyle business? Has anybody heard those terms before? Scalable business, lifestyle business? Okay. What's a lifestyle business? A lifestyle business may be, I want to start a restaurant, and I can make a good living for myself and my family out of that restaurant. That's a lifestyle business. Chuck Doss, I would submit to you, probably has a lifestyle business. He's got several businesses, but they're all lifestyle businesses. Lifestyle business doesn't mean it's a small business. It just means your goal is different than a scalable business. A lifestyle business is something you want to build, you want to continue to operate for a number of years. And so that's kind of your first decision. Am I trying to develop a business that I can retire in, or that I can pass on to my children? That's probably a lifestyle business. Or am I trying to do a scalable business? And a scalable business is, if you think about Google, or if you think about Microsoft, if you think about businesses like that, they're scalable. The difference in that is, let's go back to the first part of the talk, and I said there's intellectual property that you could commercialize. If you find some of that intellectual property, you're probably going to create a scalable business. And what you're doing with that scalable business is you're taking something, you're trying to get it to a certain stage where then you can sell that business to somebody else. We hear, our angel group hears pitches quite often. And in that last session, when you hear for the last session, we're going to give you some examples of some really good pitches so you can see what somebody who's really skilled at making a pitch does. But an example of a scalable business, we heard a pitch recently, and it was a medical device that had been developed, and they had their market share. It was a device that would be sold to OBGYNs, and they knew how many devices they could sell. They knew what the cost of the procedures were that would be used in the doctor's office. And their idea was, if we can get this manufactured and we can start selling it, and if we can penetrate so many of these offices, then we will take our product and we'll sell it to a large medical company. We'll sell it to Johnson & Johnson. We'll sell it to some medical device provider. And they said there was a comparable device that recently sold their company for $44 million. And we think if we can put our device together and get to that point, we can sell our company for 60, 70, $100 million. So a scalable business is one that generally you're going to have an idea, and what you're looking towards is a final liquidity event. And that means you sell the business. There will be liquidity events in between, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But that's the basic difference. You know, what kind of business? I know from sitting here last week, I forget y'all's name, but I know y'all have got an idea for a business. And I don't know whether it's liquidity, scalable, or a lifestyle business, but I suspect it's probably a lifestyle business. You know, you say, we want to get to this size and we think we can provide for our family. That's, you know, I will say this. How many people here think it's good to help people around you and would like to make a difference in the world? Okay. How many people here come from Northwest Tennessee? How many people come from small towns in Northwest Tennessee? How many people think it would make a difference in your hometown if you could start a business that would employ 10 people? It would. So when we talk about $44 million businesses and selling them, that's one thing, but that's not the only thing you can do. And that's just because somebody makes a lot of money, that doesn't make it more honorable than having a good lifestyle business that provides a life for you and others around you. So when I talk about these two businesses, don't think that because I'm not trying to make a $100 million business that my efforts aren't worthwhile. They are worthwhile. You'll make a difference in people's lives. Second consideration as you think about business is what type of funding are you looking for? And very basic, debt and equity. How many people here know the difference between those two things? A few people. The fact that only a few people are raising your hand should prove something to you. Remember, in the first session, one of the questions that was asked was, are you willing to form a team? And everybody said, yeah, I'm willing to form a team. Well, the fact that some of these people in the room can answer these questions and others can't should tell you maybe when you form your team, you need to get some people that have skills that you don't have. You need to think about who can help me achieve the goal, whether it's lifestyle or whether it's a scalable business. So basically the difference between debt and equity is here you're going to borrow money. You're going to go to the bank. You're going to go to friends. You're going to go to various places and say, I want to take out a loan. Equity means you're going to give people a share of your company. And so generally it's going to be a corporation. You're going to offer them shares in the corporation. Now, just a few more very broad generalization. A lifestyle business, as I said, it's going to be more focused on debt funding, borrowing from a bank or another lender. That lender can also be your family, your friends. You know, at some point you may go to your mom and dad, or you may go to a friend and say, hey, look, I've got an idea for a business. And here's my idea and I want to borrow X amount of dollars. Generally, if you do that, you're not going to be giving up any control. You're still going to be the owner, and that can be a good thing. You do give up some control in the sense that as you get bigger and as you borrow more money, banks or the people who loan you money may put conditions on the loan. And may say, I'll only loan you the money if you do this and this and this. So don't think that you've got a carte blanche just because you're borrowing and not using an equity route. On a scalable business, your pitch is going to be more focused on equity. And you're going to make that pitch to your family and friends, to angels. An angel group is a group that invests in early stage businesses, venture capital, public offering. And one of the things you're going to do in a scalable business is you're going to progressively give up control of the business. You may, if you're one of the two gentlemen back here who have all the money they need, you may never have to give up control. But if you don't have all the money you need, you're probably going to have to give up some control. And we'll talk through that briefly tonight. In a lifestyle business, you're probably going to be responsible for making all the decisions. You know, who do we hire? Who do we fire? Do we need to go borrow some more money? Can we take out this line of credit? All those things. Those are the day-to-day decisions, and those are tactical decisions. If you're a student of military history, you know that the difference between strategic and tactical goals are strategic goals are the big goals, and the tactical goals are how you achieve those strategic goals. So your strategic goal may be, we want to have 3 locations in 15 years. Okay, how do you get there? Well, you lay out your tactical vision. Well, this year we've got to do X, Y, Z. We got to groom we're going to have to bring somebody in who can be a manager at the second location. And you're doing all those things, and you're making those decisions. Now, you can get people to help you. Carol's group can help you. The Reed Center here on campus, there are people out there who will help you. In a scalable business, you're still going to be responsible for the tactical decisions. How do we get the business from here to there? But you're going to use that equity to obtain assistance with strategic decisions. You're going to use equity to bring in people who have expertise that you don't have. What does that mean? Anybody want to take a stab at it?
It's betting on you or the business.
That's right. When you go to somebody and say, hey, I want to borrow money, is it because you got a great idea? That's the horse. Or are they betting on you because you're the jockey? And a lot of times they're betting on the jockey, not the horse. But sometimes they're going to be betting on the horse. So you got to figure out who are they betting on. And if they're betting on the horse, do you have all the skills you need to take that business from the idea that you have tonight to that final execution? One other difference I think you're going to see is in a lifestyle business. You know, Chuck Doss went through and gave you the AABCs last week. Attorney, accountant, banker, center point as a pitch for his business. If you're doing a lifestyle business, you're probably going to pay for all those out of pocket. If you're doing a scalable business, you're still going to pay for some of those out of pocket, but you can also use equity to get additional skills that your business is going to need. How many people know, I'm a lawyer, I've been a lawyer most of my adult life. How many people know what a contingent fee case is? Don't everybody jump? Okay, you've all seen these commercials. If you have been injured or killed in a car wreck, I always thought that was a pretty bad commercial. The one that I used to hate was the guy who came on and would say, if you or someone you know has been injured or killed, as you grammatically break that sentence down, there's a part in there that says if you've been killed in an auto accident. I don't see how you hire the attorney at that point. But what attorneys do in contingent fee cases is they say, you bring your case, we're going to recover some money, and I'll just take my fee out of the money we recover. They're betting on your case. I had a law professor when I was first year of law school. He explained to me as a lawyer how you explain a contingent fee case to somebody who's thinking about filing one. You say, look, there's a lot of risk in a contingent fee case, and the way it works is if we lose, I don't get anything. And if we win, you don't get anything. So what you're trying to do, what you're trying to do is in your business, as you're pitching, you're trying to make sure that you're not dealing with somebody who's basically saying, if we lose, if we don't make anything in this business, you're not going to get anything. And if we win, you're not going to get anything. And that's why you get people who have that skill set for you. Okay, at this point, I'm going to pass out a handout. And we're really, at this point, I've talked some about scalable businesses, and I've talked some about lifestyle businesses. This is really going to be more for a scalable business. That first sheet should look something like what's up there. You need one more? They'll stack that in the middle.
Pass them over again.
Okay, we're going to spend maybe 5 minutes on a cap table, and it's really, I'm just trying to give you the concept, and then we're going to have a few takeaways from it. It's really a spreadsheet. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and it quantifies your ownership. When you negotiate in a scalable business and you're doing it with stock, one of your negotiations is going to be, what's my business worth at the time before you put any money into it? That's the pre-money valuation. And one of the things that you're going to see when we go, or 4 things that you're going to see in here, is how it operates, how control is diluted, why a pre-market valuation is important, and that's something Dave and David will be talking about, and what an option pool is and how to use it. So the first little spreadsheet you've got is formation. And this is pretty typical. Let's say you and your friend decide to start a business. And you incorporate, and you say, hey, we're going to be 50-50 partners. Okay? So we're each going to get 1 million shares. Sounds like a lot, huh? I got 1 million shares of stock. Well, they're not worth anything. They're not worth anything. You could have 1 billion, and it's still not going to change that. But what that 1 million shares of stock that each of you get indicates is that you each have a 50% interest in the business. And at this point, you don't have an option pool. It's just the 2 of you, and you're working along. But you move along, and your business gets a little bit better. You actually move from the idea of just having an idea, and now maybe you've got the prototype. And maybe you're ready to start making some sales. And you need to hire somebody. You need to hire a salesman. You need to have some additional facilities. But you don't have the money to do that. And you go to the bank and you say, Mr. Banker, we'd like to borrow $1 million. And the banker says, it's not going to happen. Sorry. Your business just isn't far enough along. So what do? You say, well, I need to find somebody who will invest $1 million. Now, what are you going to offer them? These are the questions you're going to have to ask. How much money are you going to get? How much ownership do you have to give up? And so our hypothetical is you each still have $1 million worth of stock, or without 1 million shares worth of stock, and you have agreed that your business is worth $3 million for whatever reason. And David can talk about how you get to that valuation. But that's going to be negotiated with the investor. And the investor says, well, I'm going to put in $1 million, but I want 25% of the stock. And the investor is also going to say, and I want there to be an option pool. Now, why do you have an option pool? Because you're going to hire some more people. And when you hire those people, you're not going to be able to pay them. If you're trying to get really good people, you're probably not going to be able to pay them enough to get them to come. But if you can sell them on the vision of your company, and they believe in your company, and you say, I'm going to give you a stock option, in addition to your salary, you'll have a stock option, then you've got a better chance of getting that expertise and those people to come in. So let's look at what happens here. You get that $1 million investment, and the next sheet you have after this will explain how you get to that. But what happens is each of your founders still have your $1 million or 1 million shares. The 25%, there's a calculation you do. It's pre-money value plus additional investment, and then you divide that by the 60% here to figure out how many shares you need here. And then you have this 15% option pool, which later on you're going to use that to get more talent in. Now, you negotiate two important things. One is what's the pre-money value, and the second is how big is the option pool, because you're giving up value on that. And what you end up with is, remember before you had 50% of a company. Now you got 30%. But what was that company really worth? Could you have sold it? Did you have a buyer out there that wanted to give you $1 million for the company? Probably not. So you've given up a percentage interest in the company, and you have less percentage, but you also have $1 million to help build that company. This is, if you go through, you would see how that all works out as far as coming up with the shares. But that's not going to be the end of it. You need some more money. And there may be additional funding rounds that go on. But this time when you go and you're trying to borrow some money, now the company's worth $10 million. So you've got 30% of a $10 million company now. Now you got a $3 million, theoretically, you've got $3 million worth of stock. But again, if you can't sell it, it's just theoretical. So you go to some institutional investor or somebody, and they're willing to put in $8 million more. And in the meantime, you borrowed $2 million. And that $2 million is on a loan that can be converted to stock. And so you take all that and you see the big takeaway here. By the time you get that additional money, if you go down, you see that Series C preferred investors here. Well, they used to have 25%. Now they're down to about 8.5%. And you used to have 30%. And now you're down to 10%. But now your company may be worth $20 million. So even though you got a smaller percentage, you've got more value. And this may go through several rounds before you get to that final. Each of these is considered a liquidity event, and certain things happen at these liquidity events. And you're always working towards that final number when you sell out. And when you sell out at that point, that's when you actually make money. Well, I've been talking for a while, and I'm going to try to wrap it up here. So there's 4 takeaways I'd like you to, hopefully you've gotten from this. The first is, know where you're going. You've all said you got a business idea. Now, think about it. Your business idea, is that a lifestyle business, or is it a scalable business? That's one question you should ask yourself, because that will drive a lot of the things and the things you have to consider. And when you go in and you talk to your accountant or you talk to your lawyer and you say, we're trying to get here. If you're trying to have a scalable business that you want to sell for $50 million, that's different than starting a mom and pop restaurant. So know where you're going. Know what your pitch is supposed to do. You're going to tell the story. You're going to know what you're asking for. This is my business. This is where I'm going. This is why I need the money. This is how I'm going to use the money. I'm going to hire somebody. Or it may be, I'm going to do this, and I'm setting aside options so that we can bring in a manager, or we can bring in somebody to do this. What's the quid pro quo? They're giving you money, you're giving them something in return. Understand that you may have to surrender some degree of control. I think David and Dave can both touch on this, because they have seen it in real life. People with great ideas that could have been a successful company, and they don't want to give up any of the control. Which, This is really going to date me. I'm going to challenge y'all. Has anybody here ever heard of seals and crawl? Again, it's the old people, the older people. They were a group when I was in college that was popular, and this song occurred to me today. The first line of it was called "The King of Nothing," and the song I went out. It's on YouTube, and it really sounds horrible. It sounded great when I was in college, but it sounds horrible now. But the line is important. It was when I was 17, I dreamed of being king and having everything I wanted. But that was long ago, and my dreams did not unfold. So I'm still the king of nothing. And I think the lesson there is if you say, I've got this idea, and I've got to have it all. I've got to have everything. You may end up being the king of nothing. You'll have that great idea and the satisfaction that if you had done something with it, you would have been rich. How many people have heard people say, "Oh, my granddad had a chance to buy that property over there where Walmart's sitting." Well, he didn't buy it, so he's the king of nothing. They're going to be. You may end up saying, "I had a great idea, and I just never made it happen." And then somebody else came along, and they've made a ton of money out of it. Don't be the king of nothing. And the final takeaway: understand business valuation, and that's why we brought Dave and David here to talk about that and to help you understand it. But one thing that I think they'll both agree on is that it changes, that valuation changes over a period of time. When you're starting out and all you've got is an idea and you don't have two nickels to rub together, your business isn't worth much. And you can't go in and say, well, you can put together a pro forma that says, oh, you know what, 5 years from now, we're going to have $600 million worth of sales. And so, I should keep 80% of this business and you should pay me $50 million because it's really a bargain for you to do that. You're kidding yourself. That business isn't worth $50 million. It's probably not worth $50,000. And without further ado, here's Dave and David. Here
a gift for our speaker tonight. It was very timely when I was shopping and it started raining. So thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. And you're spending your
Well, I'm going to disagree with my buddy right out of the gate.
David, I'm sorry. Do you want this session recorded, or if you want us to take it off?
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Okay.
It's all good.
That I'm sure of.
Just this is self-promotion. Just a little bit about me. I actually graduated from here in 1991, so there's hope. I got a great education here, and I've been real fortunate to stay in this area to be able to get back to work in many ways. And I hope, do any of you know who John Maxwell is? Anybody listen to him? All right, one of the things John Maxwell will tell you when he speaks is, hey, you get up here and you have either one of two things you're trying to accomplish. Fans or you're trying to get fans, you're sitting up here talking about how good you are and what you do. If you're trying to get friends, push off your knowledge so that you can take it and develop it for your own use. And that's my goal. So I want to make friends. CPA and all this stuff here just means I can pay some money and pass the test. The valuation analyst is where I've been for the last 10 years. I value small businesses mostly in this area, but now in Memphis, Nashville. I'm a court-approved expert witness in the area. It's not a lot of. It is a lot of fun. It's great fun because every case is different, and you get to learn about just about every different form of business that's in operation in the area. I mean, I've been to barbecue joints all the time. I can pretty much name anything down the line that I've seen. A lot of the things that Frank talked about in terms of lifestyle versus scalable, I would tell you that I probably dealt 95% in lifestyle business. And that's okay. They transact a little bit differently than what Frank is trying to get you to do, to think about, which is fine. If you can come up with a scalable business, you can write your own check in this world. I do believe that. I do. And much to my satisfaction and approval, and the reason I'm up here tonight is I hope that somebody in this room has an idea that will bring 10 jobs to Martin, Tennessee, or Troy, Tennessee, or somewhere in this area to get, because if we don't generate and do our part to generate this type of job creation in rural areas, we're going to get left behind. It's just as simple as that. So, I'm going to touch on basic stuff at the beginning because I think Frank sort of hit some of the high points. When I look at a business, there's three methods that I have to use. There's the asset method, which basically, in some of my lifestyle businesses, grain elevators, for example, they have a significant amount of assets that are worth significant dollars. Grain bins, trucks, et cetera, et cetera. So that most of the time I don't live in that world, and neither will you. Market-based method. Now, again, my experience with lifestyle businesses, restaurants, convenience stores, professional practices, all of that. Market method is driven by other transactions. Okay, and you say, well, and I compare it to buying a house. You go to buy a house, you get your house appraised, they go get three or four comparable sales, somehow do their math in their head, and they come up with an answer for what your house is worth. Okay, the problem in my world is I'm never going to find two businesses that are exactly the same. So market comparables, unless you're a publicly traded company and you can go through a monumental amount of statistics and data, it's not going to apply. Not in my world. Now, this is where I live most of the time. It's income-based method, which is exactly what it says, based on the amount of money that a business generates. The top one is DCF. Anybody know what that stands for? Discounted cash flow. That is a forward-looking projection, which in your case is going to be extremely important. And I'll touch on that a little bit more in a little while. That basically takes your expected cash flows over your first 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, however long you project it, and it brings it back to what those dollars are worth today through the present value of money. Anybody have finance? Need to pay attention to present value of money because this plays a big part in this. The second one there is capitalization of earnings. It's also based on income, but it's more of a historical model. So if I'm looking at a business that's been in business 3, 5, 10, 20 years, that's based on historical transactions. Now, where'd you do my mark?
Oh, right, in that orange.
It's scanned.
Oh, I got you. Now, valuation is not an equation. It's not a, it is a imperfect science. But here's the basic back equation. All right, that's value is equal to benefit stream over risk. Rate of return, risk. Problem is there's about 25 different ways to calculate that. And there's unlimited factors that come into risk. So while that is the basic equation, I put that up there for one reason. When you're making decisions on how you build your models, before you get ready to do a pitch, do it with this equation in mind. In other words, the only way to increase value is to increase my bottom line, basically, and keep the smallest amount of risk around as you can. Now that bottom one's going to be tough, okay? But when you're building numbers, that benefit stream means everything, and I'll touch more on that here in a minute. Now, Frank touched on this. There's basically three types of investors. What we call the incubators. He only mentioned two F's. I got a third F. There's friends, families, and fools. If you can find the last one, it'll be fine. Now, these folks are going to get you off the ground. That's why they're called incubators. They're going to get you off the ground. They're going to help you get started. They're not going to ask for much in return, as Frank's already mentioned. But they very well could be the most crucial piece of the pie. Your focus should be getting your business off the ground. I sat in a room in San Diego, California, 2011. Who's seen Shark Tank? I've been to a real life Shark Tank. It was before that was popular. I sat in a room with five or six people sitting on the front row. One guy had a Hawaiian shirt and flip-flops. I didn't think he could buy groceries. The guy was worth about $1 billion. Had sold 3 software companies, and all he did for fun was do this stuff. Come and invest in small businesses. To give you an idea of where we've come in that period of time, that was the only place in America we could go to do something like that. And now, people like Frank have seen the need for that here, and that will only do nothing but jumpstart our local efforts. But that's when I was there, I sat in there and watched 8 pitches. And I'm sort of jumping ahead a little bit, but in 7 of the 8, sitting there, rest easy. He's easy to get along with. They're going to be the second group of investors, angel investors. They ask for a little more, but probably not as hard on you. These guys, that's who I was in front of pretty much. They want everything in your transaction. Frank said, they're going to take as much as you let them have. And if your presentation doesn't, fit their portfolio or what they're looking for, or if you can't answer a question on your feet, and they throw them at you. For example, the one I was with had a technology, and it came from universities. That was my guy's main job was to develop intellectual properties for university. And this particular deal started at Ohio State, and anyway, it was generating electricity from human waste and garbage and all that kind of stuff. He got up in there, and all the numbers were great, and they asked him one question. So, are you wanting to sell the electricity, or do you want to sell the units that produce the electricity? No answer. there went his 2.5 years of work, right down the toilet, because he couldn't answer. As I was, bumping my head against the wall in the back of the room, because I had 2 years invested in that too, and David did too, so he was a part of that story. But these venture capital guys, unfortunately, in our world, what you don't see up there are banks. Okay? When we went through this last batch of financial crisis and so forth, the banks haven't come out of that yet. They will loan money with this much risk attached to it. Which means, if you don't have some other form of security, whether that's your parents' house, whether that's you own property, or you save money, whatever, you've got to have an asset they can attach to, or they're not going to loan you money on an idea anymore. They will almost not loan any money that doesn't surround bricks and mortar or that can be secured by bricks and mortar. So the idea of taking your pitch to a bank is, I'm not going to say it's non-existent, because with the right partner, the right person on your team, if they could co-sign for you, that would be the only case, but it's probably not going to happen. What does the investor look for? Well, there's a few things. What industry are you in? What's your idea about? Right now, if you have any kind of app, you meet that question. You answer. That's hot. Anything app related is pretty hot right now. If you're going to not real good. What's not good in the United States right now? Manufacturing. I'm now involved with a project that's, I don't know if I'd call it manufacturing, but it's a way to harvest and produce various streams of revenue from Asian carp. We've been on it for about the last 2.5 years. We're $12 million into raising money. We're not started yet. But that industry, if anybody living on the Mississippi River, close to it, everybody fish. You ever been hit by? You ever seen one of them jump out of the water? Okay, they're everywhere. That's a pretty hot industry. Who's on your team? Your team can get you through to a second pitch. Just whoever you have. If you put Frank on your team, probably not. No, I'm just kidding.
No, he's not.
But if you have you need to surround yourself. If you are a great marketer or you love to sell, you better have some administrative help on your team. It doesn't have to be on your payroll necessarily. It could be in your, Frank mentioned equity for services. I've not done any of that. It's a great idea though. But you need people on your team that strengthen your own weaknesses. Now, the problem with that is most people, when they get to a certain point in this process, they think they're sort of know-it-all. You don't. I don't. If you can't ask for help, this is probably not a good route for you to take. You've got to have a good team in place. Do you have a functioning product? And if you do, how are you going to get that product to your customers? In my experience, I saw a couple that had prototypes. Everybody said, you got a great idea, go build 10,000 and sell 10,000, then come back and talk to me. Your idea, right now on the page, if I put the word idea in that corner, that's for your idea. That other corner is when you get into operations. There is a lot of, you're not going to think of something and put it into production without a large amount of hard work and a large amount of research, market share data, all of that. All that comes into it. You've got to have all that. So they're going to look for, do you have a product and can you get it to the customer? Then what I call traction. In my fishing case, we have signed orders for 1 million pounds of fish a month. All they're doing is waiting us to produce it. Now, you say, well, that's maybe not that big a deal, but when you're looking at an investor, not only do I'm in the industry, I got a great team, I know where my product is and I can get it produced. Now I've got orders sold. Okay, now that's not money in the bank, but it's real, real close. Now you've demonstrated that the market's ready for your product. If you can demonstrate that to an investor, you move up the list. Because you've just taken the question of whether or not you can get it out there out of the mix. You've already got signed commitments. And people that are looking for your idea are more than happy to sign those documents if you have the right idea. Now, financial projections. This is the one thing that is probably the thing that will sink you the quickest. All investors speak the same language. No matter what level they are, they all speak the same language. It's money. Okay? Kevin O'Leary, Shark Tank, you've heard him say it every episode. Great idea, but I want to make money. That's what I do. That's what they do. That's what they expect out of you. And they want to see that in the numbers. They want to see how you are going to project where sales are going to be, how you're going to manage your expenses, how you're going to keep your product fresh, whether it's research and development, marketing, whatever the idea is, you've got to keep it fresh. Because so many of these things hit the market and then they're done. I mean, they don't, sustainability is a big, big deal. Because if you're going to have a scalable business and get to the $44 million that Frank talked about, that is years of operations to get to that. And you've got to have a pretty good, solid foundation to start, and then you've got to be able to build on that. And that's where the financial projections come in, especially when you're just getting started. And again, when you start building these financial projections, there's a couple things. Build with the end in mind. If you don't think your idea can do either make you a living for the rest of your life, or which would be a lifestyle business, or as a scalable business, build it to the point that you can have your liquidity event, because in a lifestyle business, your liquidity event is retirement. That's going to be mine. I'm going to retire from my practice, and I got a son that's a senior here, and he's fixing to write me a check every month. That's my liquidity event. In a lifestyle business, that's how that's how those transactions take place. In a scalable event or a scalable business, you're going towards that liquidity event, but you got to build everything with that event in mind. Your timeline, how you get there, as I said, how you keep your product relevant in the market, all of that. So the longer you build out a projection, number one, the more chance I'm going to blow a hole in it. 3 to 5 years is all I would ever go out, because anything after that, you have no idea what the market or the industry is going to look like in more than 5 years. None. So I could pretty much take anybody's projection and blow a hole in it. And the ones that I saw got blown up had 10, 15-year projections, and they went like, you ought to see you can't have a projection that goes straight like that either. That's not reality. A projection, you're probably going to go here, and then there's going to be an event, whether that's retooling your idea, retooling your line, whatever, and then you might have another bump, but you're not going to have this. And you may even have something like that. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but you've got to be realistic into what your projection and be able to defend that. Now, tax avoidance. I put that up there because by nature I'm an accountant, I do tax returns, and the number one thing you do a good job with your idea, and you have an accountant on your team, man, you're gonna get pissed off the accountant, because I'm gonna tell you, you're doing great. Now write the check to the government for $100,000, but you're doing great. Well, you're not gonna want to write that check. But what happens is, most of the time, And again, in lifestyle businesses, this is a big deal. If I have a convenience store and I don't want to pay taxes, what do I do with my sales? I just put it in my pocket. I don't pour it. So when somebody comes to buy your business, and they look on your financial statements and you don't have any profits, how are you going to explain that to them? Okay, when I'm in divorce court, I love this stuff, man. I love it. I mean, I'm working on one right now. It's fantastic. You deposited X amount of dollars in a bank account, and you're only showing this as sales, and yeah, it's fantastic. I love it. But my point is, you have to understand tax is going to be a part of your life if you want to build value. Okay? And at the end of the day, if you're trying to build a business, either business, lifestyle or scalable, you've got to build value. Or what are you doing? You go get a job. Okay? Now, venture capitals. Good rule of thumb is they want 10 times their investment on early stage investment. Why is that? Because they're willing to leave their money in a little bit longer. They know that they are looking for the $44 million hit. You know, they want to buy into that project, 50% of $1 million, sell it for 44, they just made $21 million. Okay, that's what their mindset is. They'll leave it in there 8 to 10 years. They don't have a problem with that. They also ask for the biggest piece of the pie because they're taking the largest amount of risk. Does that make sense? Later stage investors, and this is more towards somebody buying a lifestyle business. And when I'm valuing businesses, this is sort of the world I live in. They want 3 to 5 times in 2 to 5 years. Well, that is, those numbers are smaller, but that's tougher to fit than the first one. Okay? That's why lifestyle businesses don't change hands very often, except down a family tree to your next best employee. Investors don't want, by and large, lifestyle businesses. They just don't. That's not what they're after. They're after the $44 million over there. So while those numbers are lower than the 10 times, don't get fooled and think that's a lot easier deal, because it's really not. About 20% of companies that people actually invest in actually pay off. 20%. One third lose everything. So when you're making a pitch in front of a group of investors, you've got to prove to them that you're not going to be in that 1/3, because they statistically know that there's a 1 in 3 chance that they get nothing out of their money, and that's up to you to prove in your pitch. I know there's I want to mention one thing that I'm involved with in a fishing thing, and it's not anywhere you won't find it in the book because it's sort of a new program. We have what's called a regional center, and we have something that's called EB5. Now, EB5 is a relatively new program, but if you sell, I want to explain it to you from the standpoint of you guys and your idea in a business. The federal government had an idea. Their idea was, we need to get more money into our economy because banks aren't loaning and rich people are sitting on their money because they don't believe in the stock market. So, what can America sell? What is the one thing, forget about Trump, forget about Hillary, what is the one thing that America right now can sell besides great debate action? They can sell everything we take for granted. Our freedom of speech, ability to elect folks, our ability to do whatever basically we want to do. One thing is still true here in America: you can be whatever you want to be if you want to work at it. So that's what they did. They took this program and said, for $500,000, you can, if you are a non-U.S. citizen, you throw $500,000 into a U.S. business, and we will give you your green card. And after a period of time, you become a U.S. citizen, as long as your money stays in there. Why is this relevant to you? Because as the guy that gets their investment, you pay 1/2 of 1%. That's it. It is basically free money. So, I only bring it up because there are other ways. There's grants and things like that. But we have a regional center, and the other reason this whole thing came about is to help areas like ours. Now, it really works. We've taken about $3 million in that way. And we've actually had some go through immigration and get approved for their green card. It's a tedious process. It costs a lot to get going. But the cost of doing it is a lot cheaper than giving up 40% of your company and selling your soul. Maybe I shouldn't have said that. Now I'm going to give you some pitch tips. And these are all coming from what I've witnessed, what I've been a part of, mistakes I've made. Even. First thing is you know your market. Know whatever your idea is. Know the market which you're trying to enter. Know your competitors. Know what share of the market your competitors have. And be able to explain how you're going to steal their market share. Now, I'm an accountant by trade. We have a firm that employs 150 people. And we're getting on up there in size. We're going to be in the top 25 in the state probably. And probably top 50 nationally here shortly. But here's what I do. If David's in competition with me, and he's got somebody on his payroll that really does a good job, you're going to get it the old-fashioned way. I'm going to go take his guy, which means I get all his contacts and everything else. Now, I'm telling you that because if you know your market and you know where your competition is, you also know where there's a great potential to add to your idea and have somebody else that's been there and done that help you in doing your thing. Does that make sense? Because if it doesn't, you're going to be in business 2 or 3 years and have somebody right beside you and they're going to be gone because somebody did it to you. So when you're talking about your market, you need to know, like I said, where your competitors are and how they operate. Or get that. Now, we've talked about financial projections, and Frank briefly mentioned use of funds. Use of funds worksheet is critical in front of a group of investors. Critical. You got to know every number on that sheet and exactly why you have it at that number. It cannot be guesses because they are going to ask you a question about your use of funds sheet. Right? They're going to quiz you on your use of funds sheet. And if you don't answer correctly, or if they don't get the feeling that you know what you're talking about, you're sunk. Right there. It is that important. You have to have multiple people go through practice your pitch. Use Frank, use Carol. Practice your pitch. Let them ask you questions. If you have any trouble asking questions, you're not ready yet. Okay? That's because you are literally, if you're lucky, you might get 2 chances at this, 2 or 3. Not in this setting, because they're going to coach you and get you down, and you'll probably have a few practice sessions. But once you get to that point, when you start making a real pitch, you may only have 1 shot at it, because the guys that you're talking to, that's a pretty small network of people when it's all said and done, and they talk. When I stood in front of them, they all knew each other by name, and when we had breaks, they'd be in little huddles. And you'd hear them say, well, they'd compare notes. And they do that. People do that. You got social media today. You've got all these different outlets that you can share information. It's even more prevalent today than it was then. Now, you can shadow a lot of what I just said if you'll just be confident. Nobody knows your idea like you do. Nobody knows how you believe it needs to work. Nobody's put in the hard work that you have to get your pitch to a reality up to this point. Ultimately, nobody knows if you're giving the right or wrong answer if you do it confidently. I know that may sound crazy, but that's absolute truth. Any sign of shakiness, and that doesn't bode well. Now, I put this in here, personal experience. My guy with the intellectual property had a great idea. He really did. And it would have been a real good, highly profitable venture. But when he got to the point that he was offered, I don't remember, $3 or $4 million for 51% of his company, and he didn't take it, I will tell you now that he still hasn't done a single thing with that technology. And really, right now, the technology is probably obsolete. It's probably over. Depending on what your idea is, you don't have this is not something you can drag on for 3 or 4 years, because if you do, the likelihood of somebody passing you is pretty great. It's pretty good. At the end of the day, a deal is better than no deal. And at the end of the day, if you believe enough in your idea, any deal, you can make any deal work. Okay, so don't get hung up. And I know Frank talked about it a little bit. Don't get hung up. You're going to have to give up something. Get used to that idea. The higher dollar amount you need for your idea to make it a reality, you're going to have to give up something and get comfortable with that. Because I have seen that absolutely go bonkers nuts. One more thing I haven't mentioned, and I'm going to mention it. What you're about to do is, the American dream, bring an idea to reality. It is. And we're in a country you can still do that. But the one thing that sort of got lost in the last several years, and again, I have a kid that's in college here, and his work ethic stinks. Okay, I can't get him off his phone. I mean, he's awful, and he's going to get him. There's you are committing yourself to the most amount of work that most of you will ever have to think about doing. Because the degree of preparation that you have to go through to do this and make this work is unlike anything else. That's why you get to $44 million at the end of the day. Okay, you might have to sleep in a car. I knew somebody, that started their own thing. It had a one room, had a big enough room for a twin bed and a toilet, and then the back of the shop. That's how I got started.
I didn't give you permission to talk about it.
Sorry. But hard work and the passion that you have for your project, tell and sell your story. That's key. That's key in this process. Be comfortable enough with your idea that you can tell and sell your story. Good luck.
I'm David Reed, and I'm going to say a quick word, and because I want to encourage you. First of all, I went to UT Martin as well. I went here 3 years. I finished at Knoxville. I majored in ag economics and ag education. The first thing I want to tell you is 30 years ago, I hired some folks that offered what you just got. And it cost me almost $1,000 an hour to get them 30 years ago. What you just got was incredibly valuable, but I know for most of you it probably seems really overwhelming. Don't let it overwhelm you. Don't let it overwhelm you. I mean, remember it, work on it, but don't let it overwhelm you. I will tell you, I've owned a number of companies. My first business venture, though, is the one I want to tell you about. It was the best one I ever had. probably in the 4th grade, and I taught my dad, we grew up on a farm, and I taught my dad into selling me this beef calf that I was going to show and then sell it and make money. And every day I had to come home, and it grew, but over the course of the year. But I had, after I did my other chores, I had to lead this calf around and teach it to show, and had to gentle it up first. But I worked with it every day for almost a year. I had to give it a bath every day and groom it. And we got to be really good friends. I mean, we were buddies. He was almost like a dog. I rode around on this calf. He got up to be 1,000 pounds. He was much bigger than I, because I was a little bitty guy. And we took him, and I had worked out a deal with my dad what I'd pay for the calf and whatever. So I showed the calf. I didn't win anything. Sold the calf. And I was pretty sad because I realized that my friend was going to be hamburger the next day. And on the way home, Dad said, well, let's sort of settle up. And I mean, I'm sort of in tears because my friend is gone. And okay, so he had already calculated it out. And I paid for the calf. This is what I had to pay. And I had to pay for all the feed that it ate over this period of time. I had to pay for hauling the calf in a pickup truck to the sale barn. I had to pay for my room that I stayed in. I had to pay for everything. And when I got through paying for everything, I owed my daddy more money than I got for the calf. Maybe the best lesson I ever learned. But I do want to tell you that what you got was, from these guys, was incredibly great. I spent my career building a number of different companies. And the one thing that I learned, I had a firm that helped people buy and sell companies, did mergers and acquisitions. So I did learn a lot of the stuff that they're talking about. And what you got is so valuable, but don't let it overwhelm you. And if you do have a business idea, go with it. You have no idea where it can lead. I would love to talk longer, but I'm going to quit. But don't be discouraged and don't be overwhelmed, because you've heard a lot of terms. They talked about finance terms. If you're not familiar with finance, you know that may sound overwhelming. But if you really have a burning desire to do something, you can do it. But you got to get help from folks who are willing to help you, like your instructors here, and my wife at the Entrepreneurial Center she's doing an incredible job. And my brother Frank and my other brother David. Anyway.
I want to pass around a survey for tonight. So I'm going to get that started. George, Tom, you all help. I also want to give our other two speakers a parting gift for their time for coming tonight and sharing their words of wisdom. I will tell you, the company that David Hart mentioned, that they were at the Shark Tank in California, is familiar with that deal. It's kind of funny. I got a call this week from one of the partners, and 6 years later, the numbers are the same and the story's the same. We want $10 million, but we don't want to give up the million. Their story's still not doing anything, and they're still not running. So, anyway, be ready to make a deal or take a deal. Next week, we're going to have Dale Lamar, who is a attorney with the firm of Butler Snow. Need some more forms?
No, did you have anything else? That's it.
Yeah.
Oh.
Here to talk about intellectual property. So we've got some homework for you to work on over the week. This week, also with Dale Lamar, is a gentleman from UT Research Foundation who will be talking to you to something that Frank mentioned earlier about how to find intellectual property that already has a patent and sources for you to go through the UT system. So Richard Magid will be talking to us about that next week. So your homework for next week falls under this topic. Does your business have a secret sauce? If yes, how do you protect the secret sauce? And how do you make the secret sauce pay? In other words, how do you make money off of your secret sauce? And if you're not sure if your idea has a secret sauce, be sure and come, because you may find that you've got some secret sauce in your business idea. It may be your branding. For example, we have an initiative underneath that works under the Northwest Tennessee Entrepreneurial Center umbrella called Next Farm, and it's geared for agricultural type businesses. So what we did is, we didn't have anything to a patent we could go after. What we did do is protect that secret sauce and that name by applying for and getting a trademark. So you may have some secret sauce and just not really not aware of it. So I want you to be thinking about that for next week. So everything that everybody's been waiting for, and David Hart, you think they were here patiently waiting to hear you speak, but they're making. Again, did everybody get a chance to put their name in the drawing pile? Okay. My business cards are here. I'd love to talk to you all about any of your business ideas. I usually get here on most nights about 5:15. If you want to come a little early and at least let us have just some conversation next week, that'd be great. Frank, we're going to let you be the...
Not the attorney.
Not the attorney. Well, I'm not sure the accountant's any better. Does anybody else have anything else they'd like to say? That's true. Spoken like a truth. Okay.
Oh, Frank Holbrook.
It can't be Norma either.
Aldo.
Aldo.